Yeah, we're pretty dry. We're pretty dry. The allergies are just awful. So bad.
Yeah, that's true. You get into that point where you start getting everything starts growing again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the trees started getting all the white, flower petals and everything, and then they all fell down in a day. Yeah.
They all
and me and my kid walked outside, and he goes, "Daddy, it's snowing." No, it's not.
That's pollen, son. When a mommy tree and a daddy tree love each other very much.
All right, chat's ready. Let's see.
You read your copy of Freelance Manifesto yet?
I have not. I've actually been reading another book called The Pumpkin Plan. Have you heard of this one?
I haven't. No.
It's an entrepreneur kind of a book, like how to grow your business and like weed out all the nonsense.
Okay.
It compares businesses to the farmers that grow giant pumpkins.
Okay.
And like what their process is for growing a giant pumpkin. And there's like, you have to start with good seed. You have to, pay attention to only the important pumpkins on the vine, cut away the ones that aren't growing very well, all this stuff.
So man, we need to talk about that on the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're fine. All right. I believe that the live stream is up on Brograph.tv, so you should be good there.
Someone said sounds like a good book for farmers and render farmers alike.
Exactly.
What's up, Swaroop? What's up, Tokyo Megaplex? What's up, Grant? What's up, Liam?
Hey, Grant's on the wire, huh? Hey, Grant, how's it going?
Well, there's like 800 Grants, so...
Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of grants.
Well, I suppose that's true.
Almost got this live thing up on the site. I don't know why it's not coming up at the moment. Come on. Sometimes it just decides that it doesn't want to work.
Hey, are you coming to NAB? I can't remember.
No, I'm at booth there possibly next year.
Yeah?
I just ran out of time this year. So. I will be at SIGGRAPH, of course,
okay.
but
you could still just come and hang out with us.
Well, that's true. I could.
Flights to Vegas are very cheap.
I'm still waiting for my invitation to have a corner of the Maxon booth.
Yeah.
Oh, that costs money.
Yeah. We're waiting for that invitation too.
Oh.
Those booths are so expensive.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I just know how expensive the 10x10s are, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm gonna try and repost this again. Give me 1 second. It's just not cooperating. There it goes. There it goes. Save. All right, Brograph.tv is up. Alive and well. So we're going to get ready to go here. All right, so I'm going to close this.
All right, I bought that book.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to switch to our...
Basically free.
I'm going to switch to our cameras now.
Yay.
And we're good to go. All right.
I
Let's
should probably start recording, shouldn't I?
Yes. So is everybody rolling at this point on audio?
I'm recording, yes.
Okay.
No, hold on. Mine is being dumb. It's really loud right now. Stupid. I hate Windows when it...
I'm on Windows. I don't have those
Yes,
kinds of
too.
problems.
Yeah.
See, and now it's like... All right, well, hopefully that works. All right, I'm rolling.
As long as you're not...
well, the problem is,
overwatch
like...
looking, so.
Yeah, and you'll probably need to check the levels on this interview versus a Jules interview, because the Jules interview, I have a feeling, will probably be much louder. I don't know. This one may be just as loud.
Limiter, so it shouldn't be that bad. So...
What's up, Phil?
All right, we're going to do a clap. The way we're going to, this is how we sync it. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then on 4 we all clap together. So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, like that. So we're all going to do it now. Ready?
Ready.
1, 2, 3. All right.
Word.
Word.
All right, Ty. So Dave will introduce himself. I'll introduce myself, and then I'll introduce you.
10-4.
All right.
Why am I recording on this channel? Hold on a second. It just decided to record on your...
See, now my audio levels are like freaking huge. They're like, silence, is it negative or is it negative 39 versus like nothing?
That's all right. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, but you got a constant hum going on.
Oh, well, that could be me, because
no,
there's
it's
a
on
fair
my
amount of
No,
stuff
yours
over
is
here.
good. Yours is good.
Matt's video is behind.
And that doesn't make sense. It's all the same.
Left dude is behind. You ready, Dave?
It's weird. I'm looking at it. It looks fine.
Hmm.
All right. And it can't be like one is behind and one isn't, because it's all coming from the same source. Okay.
I hate Windows when it comes to... Maybe I just need to get a new Yeti.
We got to do this clap again.
We do?
So, yeah, because I had to restart my recording.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
So, here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Hold this down. No, that's so dumb.
Of course, I get a phone call right when it starts. Okay. You ready to go, Matt?
Just hold on 1 second. One second. Sorry. All right, let's try that. I don't know if that'll work or not. All right, let's do it.
All right, you do the intro.
Me?
Yeah, we're just doing the interview part. We're not doing the whole show.
Oh, okay. Okay. Joining us today is our good friend. He's Mr. Plow. That's his name. That name again is Mr. Plow. Ty Christensen from Pixel Plow. Thanks for being here, Ty.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to talk about like basically the business behind running a render farm and what it all takes. It's definitely, it's something that within our industry we utilize a lot, but we may not think about what goes on in the back end of everything.
Right.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us a little rundown on yourself and the history of Pixel Plow?
Been kind of an entrepreneurial type. You know, I'm firstborn, kind of the type A personality. Straight out of college, I decided to start my own business. And when I initially started, I thought, like everyone else, hey, I should be in the business that I got a college degree in. I have a college degree in audio engineering.
Okay.
So I started my business being an audio engineer, and within about I think it took approximately 2 or 3 hours, and I realized there was no way in the world I was going to be able to support a wife and children or live anywhere other than somewhere under an overpass on an audio engineer's salary.
Right.
So I thought, well, you know, I need to kind of change this up a little bit. And in that first year of business, I got involved in the tech industry. And it's something that just kind of came naturally to me. So from there, I kind of changed my business focus entirely to a totally different industry and started doing IT support, you know, managing computer networks for small to medium-sized businesses, kind of boring stuff.
Okay.
You know, my printer doesn't work, that sort of nonsense. But it was out of that I've started a number of kind of offshoot businesses, And I've tried a lot of different things. I've thrown a lot of stuff against the wall to see what sticks. But it was about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, when as a render farm service customer, I started surveying kind of the options that were out there for animators, and I was actually trying to render. I think I had like a 2,500 frame project that I was doing in TerraGen at the time, and I was like, okay, I need to find a render farm service that supports TerraGen, and I need to. I've got this 2,500 frame deal, and it's taking like 8 hours per frame on my computer, so it's like. It's going to take a ridiculous amount of time. And I'd set up a little, render farm in my basement of like 10 or 12 machines that I just had just kind of left over, from the tech company, right?
Right.
They're just kind of a bunch of machines sitting around. Sure, I can figure out how to schedule out frames to the different machines, and we'll just do that. So I was running that, and I'd run that for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was 10% of the way through the project.
Oh, boy.
And I was like,
Gosh.
well, I don't know that this is really going to work. So that's when I started looking at render farm services that were out there. And when I first found them, I just stared in disbelief at how expensive they were. I just looked at it and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like at that point I had about 15 years worth of experience in the tech industry. I mean, I know what computers cost. I know what networks cost. I know what bandwidth cost. I know what storage cost. I've been buying all this stuff for businesses and configuring all of it, and I couldn't believe it. So I thought, I wonder what it's actually costing them to run this service. And so I kind of looked at 2 or 3 of what seemed to be the more popular services at the time, and I won't mention their names; they shall remain nameless. But I kind of grabbed their pricing and I put together an Excel spreadsheet that kind of detailed out what I thought the costs were of running a farm service. So there's, of course, the hardware, there's the software licensing, there's the power that you consume, power that you're consuming, and I kind of plugged all these values into a spreadsheet and went, well, either all the existing render farm services are just unbelievably inefficient, or they're pretty close to raping their customers. I mean,
okay.
That's basically what it came down to. And I was just stunned. And so I said, surely I can do something better. Surely I can have a more efficient service at the very least, so that it could be more cost effective. So I began building that in my basement, and that was, like I say, I think that was January of, I want to say it was 2012, so it'd actually be almost 6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago now.
Wow.
And I just kind of started putting systems together. I figured everything that I did, I tried to do from a standpoint of efficiency, because I just assumed that I was trying to give the render farm services the benefit of the doubt, saying, okay, well, maybe they have to charge this much just because they're inefficient. I'm not going to assume that they're trying to rip off the industry and rip off their customers. I'm just going to assume that they have to charge this because they're inefficient. And if that's the case, then the primary way that I can compete on price is by being more efficient than they are. So everything I was doing, everything I was deciding to purchase from a hardware perspective, software perspective, network infrastructure perspective, cooling perspective, all of that, everything was done out of a basis of how can I build an infrastructure that has the bare minimum necessary to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, and then and that should hopefully result in the best possible pricing to customers that are trying to use the service. And so for that first 2 years, I like to say we operated in stealth mode. We had a website. I think we accrued maybe like 30 accounts or so in that first 2 years. But I didn't do any marketing, any advertising at all. We were really just kind of it was just almost more of an internal proof of concept kind of an infrastructure for us. It's like, is this even going to work?
Were you still working a full-time, like a different full-time job?
Absolutely.
And running this on the side?
Exactly. The farm was always a side job for me. It was like, oh yeah, I've got this, I think we had 30 render nodes. Oh yeah, I've got 30 render nodes in my basement, which is actually heating my house. So, but it was always a side job for me. It was definitely not something I was spending a significant amount of time, and I certainly wasn't focused on it.
Yeah.
But after 2 years had gone by, and we had kind of built up the software infrastructure a little bit. We tuned and tweaked our agent a little bit to make it a little bit more usable. And I think it was around that point where we released a Mac agent, so we had an agent that could run on both Windows and Mac platforms, which was good for us. I think it was about that time where I actually contacted the Terragen developers, the guys over at PlanetSide Software, and said, hey, I know you have like an official render farm service partnership. Would you consider changing it to us? And at the time we had pretty comprehensive support of their application, and we had kind of preliminary support of a bunch of others. I mean, a lot of stuff out there worked. I mean, we had kind of the standards, Max and Maya, and Cinema 4D actually didn't come on board until maybe our third year or so. But we had other stuff too. We had Blender and Lightwave and Modo and stuff like that. So was it at this point that like the creators behind Terragen, they actually signed up with you, right? Yeah, it was when they changed over to recognizing Pixelplow as their official render farm partner. That's when I said, I really need to kind of focus on this, and I need to try to make this happen. And on top of that, it really felt like at that point, like this was really going to take off. Like, okay, this will actually be usable someday. Like, there could be more than 30 accounts here someday. So and it's grown. I would say, the best way to describe it is almost perfectly linearly since then.
Very cool.
So from about kind of the end of 2015 into 2016, and then ever since, it's been a very nice, consistent, stable, predictable, linear growth. And that has contributed a lot to our ability to kind of grow with the customer base. Because if we had if we ever got to the point where we had like a meteoric rise, that would actually be far more challenging and far more difficult to have to deal with and cope with than it is if we just had, a very consistent growth.
So be careful now that you're on the Brograph podcast. You're going to have that meteoric rise you don't want.
It's all over now. Right?
So let's talk about, unless you want to expand more on that.
Okay, so you were talking about like, cost to operate and stuff like that. You've got your energy, you've got your hardware, you've got the cooling costs and stuff. What bandwidth. As far as and bandwidth, what as far as that goes is actually the most expensive for you right now?
Oh, electrical power by far. Yeah. I mean, as far as recurring costs go, electrical power is probably 70 to 80% of our operating budget.
Wow.
Excuse me. I don't really wrap hardware and software into kind of like an operating budget, because those are more event driven. Like, okay, we now are at the point where we need more hardware. Oh, we're now at the point where we need more GPUs. Oh, now we're at the point where we need to upgrade, these various software packages. So I don't really wrap those into any kind of an operating budget, just because, they're more event driven. But as far as, kind of the recurring, predictable cost, utilities and everything, electrical power is by far the biggest.
Well, And so how exactly is it that you keep the costs down for the client? That's the secret.
As much as you can say.
As much as you can say.
As much as I can say. Well, it goes back to kind of some of the decisions that I made very early on. When we were building render nodes at the time, I looked at a render node, or just looked at the process of rendering and said, okay, what's needed in order for an application to render something? Okay, well, we need CPU. We need several cores, hopefully a lot of cores. They need to be highly clocked. We can't have any low clock speeds. We have to have a combination of high core count and high clock speed. And then after that, we need probably a lot of memory. And at the time, it was like, okay, we need 32 gigabytes of memory. That's like kind of our bare minimum. Like, and this was, of course, 5 years ago. So it's like, okay, 32 gig of memory. We're just not even going to go any smaller than that. We shouldn't even think about or look at anything that's less than that. But then after that, really all we need is a place to hold the scene file data and assets, and then a place to put the output, and then a network which has enough bandwidth to each individual node that no node becomes I/O starved. But after that, it's like that's really all a render node needed. Now, if you're going to go out and buy a render node, what do you go buy? Do you go buy a commodity computer? Do you go buy a desktop machine, from HP or Dell or somebody, or are you buying like something that's custom built? Maybe you want to get some fancy thing with a bunch of fancy GPUs or whatever. But are you actually, what are you paying for? What are you buying? Are you buying every machine with a case? Well, do you need a case?
Yeah.
Are you buying every machine with an optical drive? Well, do you actually need an optical drive? Are you buying every machine?
I think I would need an optical drive in every single one of my machines.
See, it's pretty silly, but when you think about it, it's like, well, if a render farm service is actually purchasing, unnecessary hardware, then it gets reflected in their costs. So we're going to make sure that we buy only the bare minimum necessary in order to make our render nodes. Which
now are you guys building all these nodes yourself, or are you purchasing them from a third party, like someone who you've licensed with in order to build these specific nodes?
Yeah, we have done a combination of both, and it kind of changes over the years as hardware changes, as the cost of various components changes. We've done both approaches, and we have kind of a mix on the farm right now. Some of them are custom build nodes that we've assembled ourselves, and some are a little bit more like commodity nodes, although we do modify them in order to again reduce their power consumption. We purchase them without certain components because we just simply don't need them. So a lot of it for us is how do we create that hardware environment that has the bare minimum necessary so that we just know that it's efficient. Because I mean, if you don't have that optical drive in your case, then that's a few watts of electrical power that you're not consuming. And that's, whatever, $20 you saved, right? By not having to buy the optical drive. And if you're buying hundreds or thousands of render nodes, that $20 purchase, that can be a pretty big number.
Yeah, for sure.
So we make sure that we're only purchasing the bare minimum, and that's where we go. So
do the GPUs systems? I mean, I'm guessing the answer to this is yes, but do the GPU systems take a lot more to cool?
No, they actually don't, and it's because of the way that I've designed our cooling system to operate. Our cooling system is actually something I get really excited about, and I think I've even, when I've been around you guys, I've been like, no, our cooling system is so cool.
You have mentioned that once or twice, yes.
Yeah, a few times, and you're like, really, you're that excited about the cooling system? I don't get it. But no, the cooling system is neat because it's a one-pass cooling system. So that means we take fresh air in from outside of the data center. We pass it through, we do whatever we're going to do to it. We pass it through the systems, and then it gets exhausted as hot air out of the data center building. So because it's a one-pass system, really it all just comes down to flow rate. So what kind of cubic feet per minute is coming off of the CPU cooling fan, what kind of CFM is coming off the GPU cooling fans, and do we have exhaust fan volumetric capacity to be able to exhaust that much air away from the system? So
if essentially you've become...
Did you design... Say your joke, Dave. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
What was I going to say? Let's see how well you know me.
You were going to say something like, I don't know, something Mr. Plow referenced. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so essentially you're becoming a master of passing gas.
No, I wasn't going to say
Ding, ding. Where's your bell, Matt?
That's right
there you go. Nice.
All right.
We'll be here all week. Yes, actually, it is extremely relevant to efficient data center cooling.
So did you I know nothing about data center cooling or anything like that. Did you design the system yourself, or is this standard data center type stuff?
Yeah, I designed it myself, and we're in our third major version. I try to break things up by version, just like hardware and software, right? So we're in our third major version of the cooling system. The fourth is coming online to cool a lot of our CPU nodes here in another couple months. So, but yeah, every iteration of the cooling system that I designed gets a little bit simpler, has fewer moving parts, which means fewer points of potential failure, fewer things that have to be monitored, managed. It just makes operation that much more reliable and that much less expensive, obviously, because we want to try to make use of the things that we have at our disposal, things like gravity, things like water pressure, things like, if we don't have to create it, then let's use what we got.
For sure. So now you support Redshift currently. That's the big GPU one. Hopefully, right. I'm crossing my fingers for Octane soon. I'm crossing my fingers.
Right.
With the announcement of version 4 and their enterprise stuff, that's me crossing my fingers.
Right.
But have you had issue with the current GPU I guess crisis or whatever of not being able to get GPUs? At least none of us have been able to find them, and reasonably priced as well.
Sure.
If you can get them, they're very expensive. Have you had to deal with that?
Well, somewhat fortunately for us, we implemented our GPU farm, and we have I wouldn't say that it's humongous, but it's a decent sized GPU farm. And that was kind of like our initial build out was quite a few cards. So since then, we haven't really had to grow that any, simply because there hasn't been quite the demand for it as there is on the CPU farm side. So as a result, we haven't been under the gun to try to come up with a lot of additional hardware. Now, of course, since then, NVIDIA made their EULA change in the CUDA software saying, hey, if you run a data center, then you can't use our consumer grade cards anymore. You have to purchase the really expensive ones.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Is there any sort of I don't know. I would think that there's some sort of grandfathering in or something like that, for at least the data centers who are already using them.
If you're running an older driver build like we are, then the EULA at the time wasn't prohibited. So, I mean, until I don't know how long we're going to be able to milk that. I mean, obviously, I should say it's not our goal, and we don't set out to try to do things that are against what other companies want us to do. But at the same time, when companies like NVIDIA make rather sweeping changes like that have a substantial impact on the actual cost of delivering the service, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I can imagine. So from, like, I guess from this point on, are you going to have to go all with
Teslas and everything?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. If we want to run newer CUDA builds, then it looks like that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get, workstation grade or server grade cards, and those are quite a bit more expensive.
Yeah,
than,
I can imagine
their consumer counterparts.
Yeah.
Now, and I haven't even started to look in. I have started to look into pricing and trying to plug that into my various spreadsheets and see what that's going to look like. But I don't yet know, like, is there any difference in availability? Like, could we actually get the high-end cards, or are they just as starved on the market as the consumer grade cards? That I don't know yet.
I don't know. I want to say, yeah, I don't know. I want to say when I went on the NVIDIA website to look to see if they had any, like, 1080 Ti's or even some 1060s, the Voltas were the only thing that were actually available.
Right.
But I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, you would think if they were trying to coerce all of us heavy hitters into purchasing their high-end cards, they would make them available.
Right.
So that's my assumption, but we'll see if we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So there's lots of
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was looking in the chat room, so we have quite a bit of questions. Number one is about Houdini. I think that some people have been asking. I think Grant especially has been saying you probably know him because he's been hounding you about this. But
absolutely,
is there some sort of EULA problem with something about the EULA in Houdini that's not allowing you to support it?
Yeah, there is, and it's we've actually been working with side effects on and off over the past almost 3 years now. So side effects just well, let me backtrack a little bit. Software developers kind of, in terms of how they view render farm services like ours, they end up in kind of one of three camps, right? There's one kind of software developer that says, "Oh, your render farm service, that's nice. I don't care, and just buy my software and whatever. I don't care how you run it. You just buy my software, you run it." Then there's another type of software developer that is sees a render farm service as more of a value add for their customer base. So they go, "Oh, hey, render farm service, can you support our software? We will give you our software because we want it to work and be available on render farm services so that our customers can take advantage of that." And
so
that's cool.
If they're giving away the software to you, are they asking for any sort of incentive for it?
When they're giving the software away, no. We actually have a few software developers that have done that for us. They've actually approached us saying, "Can you please support our software? We will give you all the licensing and everything that you need in order to run it on your farm. Will you please just support our software?"
That's really cool.
Yeah, and of course the answer is yes, absolutely. We'd love to, and we'd love to work with that. Working with software developers from those first two groups is a piece of cake. Then you have the third group of software developers, which feel that render farm services are they are a direct threat to their profitability. So now how that works out, it can be a little bit different. But when the business feels like, or when the software developer feels like render farm services are a direct threat, they're usually the ones that come up with funky render farm specific licensing programs, which we're under a few of them, kind of because we have to be. Right. But they can also work out to be saying, "Well, we view you as a threat, and we're not going to legally allow you to run our software at all." And so that's basically the approach that SideFX has taken in their end user license agreement. If you look at it, it's still very prohibitive from the perspective of who can run Houdini, what parts of the Houdini software suite you can run, As a render farm service, you're very restricted. It's my understanding that they have a relationship with Grid Markets, which has their office also in Toronto, Canada. Strangely enough, I feel like it might just be down the street kind of a thing, but I don't know. So they have this relationship with Grid Markets, and Grid Markets must have a different EULA and be under a different contract and agreement with SideFX because they can support Houdini in all of its various forms, but we can't. So I've been trying to kind of cut through the corporate bureaucracy, and had actually managed to get all the way up to the VP of sales. And we had a very blunt and honest conversation actually about 2 years ago. And he acknowledged and conceded that, everything that I was telling him made a lot of sense. I was telling him, hey, look, Houdini, I just asked him, I said, hey, how much of your tech support time is spent trying to tell people how to do network rendering with Houdini? Like, just how much of it is? And he's like, oh, well, a lot. I said, what if you had a render farm service that you were partnering with, such that people didn't have to try to set up their own network to run Houdini? They could just send it off to a service and have it rendered and get the results back. Do you realize what kind of a drop in tech support load there would be simply because of that? Simply because there were some options there, right? And he's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a significant change in their EULA since then. There's been some small changes, but I'm still kind of hoping that maybe some customers will put some pressure on them, and kind of like Octane customers are putting pressure on.
So Grant, that's all you, dude. Grant, if you're hearing, put pressure not on PixelPlow, but on SideFX.
No, it's okay to have pressure on us. That's fine, because I have to go back every now and then and review these EULAs anyway, because sometimes they change and I don't necessarily know it or notice it, and so I have to go back and look at them every now and then.
Yeah. So
well, and the pressure for doing Octane as well. Like, you get a lot of people asking about Octane?
We do. I just had one this morning. So we get a fair amount of people that are asking us to support Octane, and I have a canned response for all of them. And I'm sorry, but we legally can't do it. So go complain to Otoy about it.
Well, maybe things will change with Octane 4.
Wheels are turning, so I hope something will happen there.
Chad Ashley's on the chat. He says hi, Ty.
Yo, Chad, what's up?
So let me ask you this, because in Houdini, I know when you're dealing with like Houdini sims and stuff like that, you're talking about like large amounts of files. Like I can imagine, not just with Houdini stuff, but other simulations like X particles and whatever, like
Turbulence FD. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, exactly. Or even like Alembic files and stuff like that. How is it? How are you able? It boggles my mind that you can, take so much data so easily and just get it done.
Yeah. So that kind of comes down to like a question of overall job size. Like, what's the average job size of a job that goes to PixelPlow? The average job size is fairly small. Usually it's 2 gigabytes or less. Most of these jobs are pretty insignificant in size. At least I consider 2 gigabytes insignificant. Your listeners might not, you may not, but in terms of what we deal with routinely, like a 2 gigabyte scene file data set is minuscule to us. But then every now and then you have someone that comes along and says, well, I got a 0.5 terabyte worth of data that I've got to upload because I've got this gigantic TFD sim or a giant, real flow export to Alembic and bring it back in kind of sim, or I've got, I've just got this huge simulation cache data that I need to upload to the farm. And then the question comes down to, okay, what kind of bandwidth do you have? Like, what kind of bandwidth do you have access to? That's really the big question, and that's something that we've actually been talking about and working on quite a bit. Hopefully we can talk about later in the show some of the new features that are coming out in our version 3 agent that I'm just totally psyched about. But it kind of has to do with how much data gets uploaded and then what happens to the data once it gets on the farm side. So if you have a customer that says, yeah, I got 500 gigabytes worth of SIM data that's part of my scene file that needs to get uploaded and with a job, how am I going to get that to you? Then my question is, how much bandwidth do you have? And then I run the numbers for them. It's just math at that point, right? It's like, well, you have 10 megabits per second worth of upstream bandwidth. Well, that's going to take you forever to upload all that. Yeah. So it's like, it's not any render farm service, at least one that only offers an online, submission process where you have to submit everything through the internet. One of the cool things that we are doing is that in the next version of our agent, we will have the ability to pre-cache data. So we've had a number of discussions with artists that are working on some of these larger data sets. We'll have the ability to have them actually send us a physical copy of the data, like on an external drive or something. Wow. And then we can pre-import that data into the system so that it's cached on the farm side, so that when they actually go to submit their job, the agent software goes, oh yeah, all this, this whatever, half terabyte worth of stuff, it's already on the farm, so we're not going to upload that. I just need to grab your scene file and these few other, asset files that changed. And
gosh, that would worry me. That would scare me as an artist, sending like a hard drive over and then like worrying that I accidentally didn't click one little button, Right. Like, okay, here's my, a terabyte worth of SIM data, and then I forgot to, put on an alpha channel or something like that.
Right. Whoops, I need to recalculate the SIM.
Right. And then resend you the hard drive, a new hard drive.
Yeah, and that's a very real problem. But I mean, until end user connections, internet connections get a lot faster, I think we're going to continue to have to kind of jerry rig things into working. So.
Well, let me ask you this, and we've kind of chatted about this when we went to dinner the other night, or breakfast, delicious breakfast. Tell me kind of how now. Okay, so I'm gonna talk some crap about another render farm service that I don't like.
Well, why don't you just not say the name of?
All right, so there's another render farm service that I don't like, who
other
is
services
based
that
overseas.
Okay.
And their download speeds are super duper slow. And like the one thing that I really like about PixelPlow is like the speeds are super fast. Like I can submit my project using the actual application that you guys have, which I think is also super killer. Like I can see the upload speeds, I can see the download speeds, I can see the percentage, I can basically see it all in one application.
Right.
How is it that you guys are able to keep these upload speeds so much faster than, say, someone
because this isn't necessarily like a particular render farm issue. This would be any render farm that is have this same exact issue
addressed. And I realized we were starting to get customers from around the world. We had people on literally the opposite side of the globe that were signing up and uploading data to us and downloading results. And I was kind of scratching my head, because again, I being in the IT background, I've done a lot of network engineering, and I have a pretty good understanding of network topologies and how data actually traverses networks like the internet. So I looked at that and went, how could we make that faster? And I'm like, well, if the customer only has, because what we were running into is we had customers that were in like some of these European nations where they've got fiber to every home, or not every home, but they've got fiber to the home available. And so people had these, fractional gigabit fiber optic lines in Norway or whatever, and they're like, well, hey, I've got 250 megabits per second worth of bandwidth. What's the problem? Like, well, the problem is you're just too dang far away.
Thinking uploading at 15 megabit per second. Maybe it's just me and my potato internet, but I'm thinking 15 megabit per second upload is still pretty good.
Yeah, but when they have 250 megabits per second of bandwidth symmetrically, they're looking at, hey, I should be, their thinking is, as an end user, I should be able to upload at 250 megabits per second. That's what their perspective is. Now, it turns out that's actually really difficult to accomplish, but nonetheless, that's what they think, right? And we want to try to build do that as much as we can possibly manage to achieve that. So when you look at long distance links, really the killer of bandwidth is the latency between the two endpoints, because there's a lot of routers and there's a lot of long distance physical links in order to get back and forth between those two endpoints. And what happens is that when one side is sending data, it can only send so much data before it has to wait for the other end to reply saying, yeah, I got that data, continue sending the next batch of packets, right? So what ends up happening is that if you're only sending one stream of data, how far you are away from a latency perspective directly impacts how much data you can actually move over a given period of time. So I said, okay, well, this is actually really easy to solve. We just have more than one stream of data moving data at the same time. So that each individual stream, while a single stream could be capped at whatever, 15 megabits per second. Well, if we had 10 streams running simultaneously that we were multiplexing and demultiplexing the data across, then all of a sudden now we can move 150 megabits per second instead of 15. And so, we did this a number of years ago. I think this was actually before our first SIGGRAPH booth, which was in 2016. We had I think it was early that year, we built in automatic multi-session TCP data transfer, and that's both for sending data and for receiving data. And so what that does is it gives us the ability to make the customer internet connection the only limiting factor in throughput.
Right.
So if the customer has 100, the customer has 100 meg symmetric, so 100 meg up, 100 meg down, then they should be able to get close to that when they're sending and receiving data from PixelPlow. And if you think about it, it's the amount of time that your job takes isn't just a render time component. It's how much time it takes to upload the data, how much time it takes to render, and then how much time it takes to download the results. There's some tricks that we can do on the upload side, which we're working on, and we're doing them. It's already available on a version 3 agent that's in beta. The beta is publicly available, so you can run it if you want to. And then there's really the only tricks we can do on the download side is deliver output as it's created, which we've done by default for every customer all the time. A number of other render farm services don't necessarily give customers access to be allowed to do that. Which the problem with that is that's delaying the total job completion time, right? Because if you had a job that was going to run, let's just say you had a job that was going to run 24 hours straight, and then it was going to take 24 hours to download all the data. Well, if you were delivering the output as the job was creating it, then the job would be done at about the time the render actually finished. Otherwise, you have to wait yet another 24 hours to download all the bits. So that never made any sense to me. And I'm like, no, we should just always deliver the output as it's created. So that's what we've done from the beginning.
That's the one thing, like, so Chad Ashley mentioned PixelPlow to me, and because of that, I tried you out with actually the Cinema 4D Lite files that I was doing in After Effects. So because I was speaking at the NAB New York, and I was doing a whole series on C4D Lite, and I told everyone, I said, don't render through After Effects, render through
Yeah.
PixelPlow. Just send your stuff straight to PixelPlow. It'll cost you like $1 or like 16 cents in order
Right.
to render these 90 frames, and you'll get it back so much faster, and then you can start comping all your work.
Right.
But the one thing that I really loved in using it was the standalone application where you're uploading and downloading, and you set your folder of where you want it to download, and it automatically downloads straight to your hard drive.
Right.
That to me was absolutely killer.
And on top of that, if you think about it, this is actually kind of core to some of the security and privacy policies of our service. Because if we're not holding on to those output files any longer than is necessary to get them to your machine, then we just don't have the legal liability of holding on to all this data, right? So output only exists on our system for as long as it takes to get it to your machine. Once it's extracted there, it's gone from our end. And sometimes that's to the chagrin of customers. They go, "Oh, I deleted, half the files. Can I re-download them?"
Oh, man.
Sorry, but no. but yeah, it actually makes even more sense to handle things that way from a security and a privacy standpoint, and that's important to a lot of people.
I was going to ask if you guys hold on to any of the information afterwards, but that seems so. How much space do you guys have to hold actual files that are coming in and going?
Not much. You would actually be shocked at how little we actually have. What's important for us is not capacity. What's important for us is performance. Because if you think about, okay, you've got hundreds of machines that are going to be reading in this possibly fairly large scene file and possibly a fairly large asset set, all simultaneously, you need to be able to feed that pipe quickly. So what we have more of is a lot of parallel storage, which is we don't have a lot of capacity, but we have a lot of systems that are all hosting up the same amount of data, so that all these render nodes that are all starving and hungry saying, "Feed me," they can go to any one of those parallel storage machines and get the bits that they need in order to render the job. Because that does actually directly impact render time. Because if it's going to take 10 minutes for a render node to load your scene file and assets versus 10 seconds, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of capacity. We've got, in our new caching mechanism, I think we only have around 16 terabytes or so. So it's just not a lot of capacity, just because we don't need that.
Yeah.
How big's, I don't know, you can say, I'm not going to answer this, but how big is the space that you guys have? Like how many computers? What do you, I don't know. I want to say, what are you running? But like, I don't know.
As much as you can say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the best way I can answer that, or the best way I will answer that, is that we have a lot of physical space and power cap space to be able to grow substantially. So it's already very large, but we are poised to be able to grow by an order of magnitude over what we already. It's a good amount of physical space, and more importantly, it's a good amount of electrical power availability.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So it's a lot. Hundreds of machines.
Dave?
Chad Ashley in the chat said, there's been a whole discussion on how many people have told each other about PixelPlow, like how the game of telephone has worked.
Right. What does the grapevine look like?
Yeah. It seems to have all come from Chad Ashley. So he says, "Where's my check?"
It's in the mail, buddy.
And then another question that came by is do you use any of your unused processing power for cryptocurrency?
That is a great question, and the answer is I used to a very long time ago, but it is not constructive anymore. It became unprofitable to do so I don't even know how long ago. It was a while ago.
So you're saying you used to? So back in 6 years ago or whatever, you were mining cryptocurrency. So probably that's where you made all this money in order to be able to launch Pixel Plow, right?
Actually, no, because if you think even back 5 or 6 years ago, think about the cryptocurrencies that could be mined on a CPU, like realistically mined on a CPU.
Yeah.
You're not making a lot of money doing that. So
yeah.
Should have gotten into it back in the day.
That's what you always say.
Oh man, still kicking myself for that because I was like really considering doing that at the beginning.
Are there any software, any software, or plugins or anything that you really wish that you could support, or I don't know, like, is there one that you would just kill for to be able to get, because of all these EULA and stuff? I mean, I'm sure Houdini would be one of them.
Yeah. So as far as the kill for list goes, I don't know that I have any on a kill for list. Let's put it that way. I'm not like so super psyched about any software package that I would kind of classify it as that level of ferocity. But Houdini is way up there. I would love to support Houdini. Octane is probably parallel to that, I would say. I'd love to support Octane. It's kind of funny that I'm not in the business of advocating any particular software platform, package, app, plugin, engine, whatever, because that's not what I'm selling. I'm selling compute time, right?
Yeah.
So because I am software agnostic, as I like to put it, I don't care what idol you worship at. I just want to, I want to provide a hardware platform that gives you the ability to run the software that you need to run. So I think Pixel Plow is probably, I think we already have the most legal support of software applications of any render farm service out there. I know there's, we're in competition with some Russian render farm services and a Chinese render farm service that may not have fully legal copies of software.
Right.
Most likely not.
But yeah, in terms of the legal software that we support, it's pretty comprehensive. So I feel like there's just like these last few holdouts, like Houdini, like Octane. At some point, it might be nice to support Clarice. It might be nice to support Keyshot in terms of kind of the base apps. And there's a few other render engines out there. It might be nice to support. It would be nice to support Corona again, for example. We used to, but then they decided not to renew our license.
That seems weird to me because you support V-Ray though, right?
We're right, and we actually had an agreement with Corona before Chaos Group purchased them. So it was a different agreement, and then they decided not to renew it, and then after that they were purchased by Chaos Group. So I haven't pursued it since then.
What's the who's your biggest users? Like if you can tell us what's your biggest software users and what's the biggest plugin users? Are you able to
plugins,
see that? What?
Yeah. So from a base application perspective, Cinema 4D users hands down they make up the largest portion of our just kind of our whole user base, really. We do track the render engines that are being used within the base render app, mostly because we have some licensing reasons that, like, we have to report usage or something to various entities. So we track that, but we don't track plugin usage. So as far as plugins go, I don't really have any direct knowledge on that.
Okay.
I do know that there's a lot of Xparticles users.
Really?
I know that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's quite a few XP users out there, and they're not quite as many Turbulence FD users, although there are some. I just kind of judge this based off of who has problems and who contacts us about their problems. So
maybe the Turbulence FD users just aren't having as many problems as the X Particles users.
Right. Either that or they're smarter. Or no, I'm not even going to go there. Sorry.
That's funny.
No, but yeah, we have a ton of Cinema 4D users, and honestly, for that, I'm really thankful because the C4D user base is awesome. They feel more like a humongous family than they feel like than they feel like anything else. It's almost not like it's customer or vendor anymore. It's like, oh hey man, how's it going? Like Grant. I know Grant. When Grant emails support, he's like, "Hey Ty, how's it going?" And it's just the user base and that has kind of gravitated around Maxon is just awesome, and we love to be part of it. And I'm really thrilled to just kind of stay on, or try to stay on the cutting edge of C4D development and deployment as far as plugins and render engines and versions and all that stuff goes, just because the community is so constructive, it's so supportive, and I think it's for everyone's benefit. It's for our benefit, it's for your listeners' benefit, it's for your benefit, it's for Maxon's benefit. Everyone, I think, is really benefiting from this thing. So it's pretty cool to see all that.
Yeah. So since Chad started mentioning you, have you seen your growth go up exponentially?
Yeah, actually, I remember when I first talked with Chad, it was he used our service unbeknownst to me. He used our service for something, I don't even know what it was, and it was a while ago. And then he mentioned us in one of the GSG tutorials or podcasts or something, and it was like that day there was just this spike in web traffic. And nice. I think it was a month or two later was our first SIGGRAPH show, and that's where I actually met Chad for the first time. And he's like, "So did it move the needle?" I mean, that was his question. He's like, "Did it move the needle?" Like, yeah, it did. It was pretty awesome. I think we got we got 15 people that signed up kind of as a result of that, as a direct result of that, that initial mention.
That's awesome.
I thought it was great. I was like, well, that's cool. Thank you for doing that. Like, I didn't expect it. It just kind of came out of the blue. But I was really happy that it happened, just because it felt good to realize that you've built a product and you've built a service that somebody used just out of the blue, and they thought it was so cool that they had to tell other people about it. And that, to me, that's the biggest praise you could give any service, really, is that, some Joe just signed up and used it and thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, and now he's going out and telling everybody else about it. And that's how our customer base has been built, and that's how I hope it continues to be built, because we're not trying to have one and done customers. We're trying to have people that are going to use the farm on a regular basis, and hopefully realize the value of that, right? So that's what we're focusing on, and it's just great to see it when that actually happens.
Yeah. At what point do you say, okay, we're getting so much traffic every day that we need to expand and get more machines? What's the tipping point for you in which you decide that, okay, we've got to expand more?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because I assume that you've done it several times already.
Yeah, I think maybe at least a dozen times, or no, more than a dozen times already. And we continue doing so on a regular basis. See, the farm it's a much more dynamic environment than maybe people would realize, because we're trying to operate so efficiently. And this goes back to that whole hyper efficiency thing. We didn't go out and just sign a check, get venture capital financing and sign a check for 1,000 machines, because that would be stupid. Why would that be stupid? Well, it'd be stupid because you don't have the customer base to support having 1,000 machines.
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense to come under that financial burden and that load when you don't have the revenue to support it. So because we are growing very dynamically and we grow based on what the users are sending to us, I do have to keep tabs on kind of what the average load of the farm is. And I do that. Actually, I just use the agent software that we have. I mean, I'm in it all day, every day, looking at it. And users can see it as well. I mean, if you open up the agent app on your machine, you can go, oh, hey, look at the farm load today.
Yeah.
And so what I look at is, okay, how much of the day is the farm oversubscribed? In other words, red showing on the load meter. How much of the day is that the case? Then how much, and is that going to be 5 days in a row or 7 days in a row, or is the farm just totally underwater for 2 days or what have you? I have to look at like what the average loads are. And when the average is exceeded, when the average load is beyond what the farm is capable of delivering without dynamic throttling, then I say, okay, we need more hardware. And so make the call, order up some more hardware, and get it in place. I got a forklift now. I just side tangent. I am so thrilled about owning a forklift now. It is just awesome. I'm telling everybody, forklifts are so cool. And people just go, why is he so excited about this? But it's kind of like the cooling system, right? It's like, no, forklift is so cool now.
Yeah, that's funny. So you mentioned dynamic throttling. Can you give us a little bit of insight about that? Because if I understand it correctly, okay, I think this is the way it works. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
I submitted a project the other day, and I submitted it just to the lowest tier. You know, just finish it whenever you finish it, and it still finished it pretty fast, even though you were at maximum capacity.
Right.
I'm assuming that has to do with the dynamic throttling.
Yeah. So this goes directly into what we call the power level. And the power level is something that our lead dev came up with the idea for. And we kind of, well, the analogy we used to describe it is it's like a gas pedal. Okay. The harder you press down the gas pedal, the more fuel you're feeding the engine, the faster the engine should go, right? Well, so how that translates into our service is the higher the power level, the more CPUs or GPUs we expose to your job. And so in theory, that means the less time that it would take in order to complete your job. Now, there's some caveats there, just depending on the actual job. Like if you're sending in a frame range of, let's say, oh, I want 10 frames from the scene file. Well, the way render farms work is there are going to be 10 machines that are rendering those 10 frames. So you could have a power level that might expose 100 CPUs to that job, but there's really only 10 working on it. Okay. Because there's only 10 frames.
Right,
so,
right.
And actually, this is a little side tangent. The reason there's only 10 machines working on it for C4D jobs is because we're not allowed to support team render.
Really?
Yeah. It's a pretty funky, it's a funky little spot in the Maxon ULO. But anyway, I digress. So the power level gives the user the ability to control that maximum number that we're going to expose to the job. Now, what actually happens when the farm becomes oversubscribed is that all of the jobs that are running on the farm are dynamically scaled down. So the number of CPUs or GPUs are reduced dynamically, and they're reduced based on and how that corresponds with the other power levels of the other jobs that are in the queue. So this whole thing is dynamic. All of the scheduling is dynamic. As the load increases, then that throttling takes place. So let's say you pick a power level that would expose your job to, let's say 10 CPUs. And so 10 CPUs are rendering frames from your job. And then the farm goes into oversubscription status. Maybe now we're only exposing 9 CPUs to the job instead of 10. because we don't have enough to expose your job to 10 along with all of the other jobs that are in the queue at the time, right? So that's where that dynamic scheduling happens. And then if the farm is no longer oversubscribed, if it drops down below that oversubscription level, then our scheduling algorithm, and this is a hint for people to scheduling algorithm actually oversubscribes nodes to your job to catch it up to the point in time where it would have been if the farm didn't go into oversubscribed status. Okay, so this is another thing that our lead dev has come up with. We basically run a virtual job alongside of your actual job, so our scheduling software knows how far along, like how many frames would have been rendered had the farm not become oversubscribed.
Neat.
So then we go, oh, if we have nodes available, then we start scheduling more nodes in order to catch your job back up to where it should have been.
Wow.
So even the people that are using the lowest of low power settings, our lowest is 0.8, which is kind of an odd number, but whatever. Well, it's an even number, but never. So we, even at those lowest power settings, we're trying to be very mindful of and diligent to maintain a consistent amount of compute throughput. That's kind of what we're looking for. We want to try to maintain the entire lifetime of the job such that it gets what it deserves. It gets what the user is paying for. So that's kind of what our goal is. But because all of that is dynamic, because it's constantly changing, you know, if we add more nodes to the farm, or if there are a ton of jobs in the farm all of a sudden, or there are very few jobs in the farm all of a sudden, the farm just automatically adapts to whatever it has to deal with at any given time.
That's way cool.
Yeah, it's
that's
like
to
a
me,
ballet to watch. It is just, it's gorgeous to watch. I mean, you would watch it and you would just go, oh my gosh, that is so beautiful.
So that seems so much more efficient for the customer instead of just, okay, I'm going to pay more money to make my job first in line. You know,
right.
That was the biggest thing that when I started looking into render farms for getting stuff done, it was the number one thing that bugged me is that I would submit something, I'd submit it at the lowest cost, but it wouldn't get to me for a long, long time. I would wait 2 hours to render one frame at the lowest cost because they had some other thing going. Right. And I've never noticed that with Pixel Plow. It's like I throw something at the lowest cost, it still gets done in a relatively quick time.
Yeah, and that's what we've tried very hard to do from the beginning. We try to make sure that the people that are even using the lowest power levels that you would think we wouldn't care about, well, no, we do care about it. We care about everyone using all the power levels, but we want to make sure that they get at least something, that their job gets exposed to something so that it can be producing output. You know, we try to expose at least one node. I mean, there could be 400 jobs in the queue at higher power levels, and that just would really completely squelch out what this low power job is doing. But we try to handle that fluidly in such a way that the customer doesn't go, hey, this job it hasn't kicked out any frames for 24 hours. What's the problem? Why isn't it doing anything? It just avoids those kinds of problems entirely, really.
Now, are you running all tech support yourself as well, or do you have a team that helps out?
That's the janitor's responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say janitor, tech support. Do you have have many employees?
No, I don't, because that wouldn't be efficient.
All right.
But wait, there's a theme.
I can see the theme, yes.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of funny because operating a render farm is not, I suppose it's to some degree like the way Chuck Yeager described flying. It's 99% boredom punctuated by 1% sheer terror.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit like that. There's lots of work to be done, and I'm certainly very busy trying to stay on top of, all the software updates that come out on the different packages that we support. Managing the infrastructure it should be done as automatically as possible. So the way we build our system is we try to make it as automated as possible so that we don't need a lot of warm bodies sitting in chairs doing very little actual useful work. So, we do, and along those lines, I mean, there's just tons of automation that happens. We're actually powering up and powering off. I mean, like literally power to the outlet that the node is plugged into. We're powering up and powering down nodes in order to make use of them. So if there's nothing for a node to do, it gets powered off, which means it's not consuming any power at all. Like it's off. When jobs are coming in, we actually time them so that our system knows when the job will finish uploading, and we actually power on nodes. We turn on the outlets to nodes so that they're up and running, ready to go when the jobs are, when they hit the farm and they extract and they're ready for rendering. So we'll actually pre-boot nodes to make sure that they're up and running, ready to go. Wow. So there's just all this automation and
I can imagine it's probably beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and are you custom writing all of this?
Yes. This is all custom software. This is all software we've written, and that's actually what makes up 2/3 of the company is software developers.
Wow.
So that that's where we spend most of our time and energy is on the development of the agent and then the development of all of the farm side software that's necessary to make this whole thing work. So yeah.
Now here's one thing. Here's one thing that irks me though, and not to put you on the spot, but when I minimize the PixelPlow agent or close it down, it goes into my little dock or whatever down in the corner, the little pop-up thing, whatever that thing's called, the hidden icons, but I can't close it unless I force quit it.
Are you on Mac or Windows?
I'm on Windows.
On Windows? Yeah. So for a long time, we didn't even give users the ability to exit out of the agent on Windows. On the Mac, we did, and there's reasons for that are too ridiculous to discuss. But you can quit out of the agent on Windows, but the only way we let you do it right now is by hitting the quit button on the Home tab on Windows. Otherwise, it just runs in the background, and the reason we leave it running in the background, the reason it's designed to do that, is so that the agent can download updates as we release them and update itself. So that's why it does it. But you can actually quit it. You can force quit too. That's fine. But if you go to the Home tab, there's a quit button.
Okay.
So it's a little like Skype. It's annoying to quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know what's going on with Skype.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. But it updates itself in a terrible way.
Right. Skype does, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we haven't been 100% perfect in that regard. I wish we would have, and we certainly try to be, but there have been a couple of updates that we released that we just bombed. We had to yank them like right after we released it. Yeah, it was kind of a mess, but that's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you actually had a question that you put in our notes earlier in the week about a mobile app thing or something, right?
Oh yeah. I don't know. Is there any chance of getting a mobile app as far as being able to watch your queue and your updates and stuff? Because every now and then, if I know that I'm just going to send something to you guys, I'll hit the submit button and I'll walk away and I'll go do something outside. And it would be, now it's nice that I've got my PixelPlow download straight to my Dropbox so I can see when it's coming in. But any thoughts on building any sort of app or online something to where we can actually check it? Yeah,
there have been a number of people that have requested that, and I wouldn't say a lot of people do, but there have definitely been a number of people who have asked us about that. I should say that the reason that we haven't done that already is, one, we don't have anyone here who wants to be a mobile app developer, so that's part of the reason. But two, I have intentionally and purposefully tried to stay away from the more common server-side services that could be publicly exploited. Things like FTP servers, things like all of those services.
That makes sense.
I'm trying to stay away from those only because the internet. I mean, it's a mess out there, and there's all kinds of crazy garbage traffic that we already have to deal with, and firewalls and intrusion detection software and all that stuff has to deal with, and we have to pay attention to. If we had a service that gave people the ability to look at their job queue, even if it was just kind of a viewer only, that would still potentially be a significant security vulnerability. And if it's going to be accessed from a mobile app on, say, a cellular network, it's probably going to have to run on a standardized port, which means that now we're going to have this another publicly exposed service that could potentially be exploited. And we're pretty security conscious here, and we kind of have to be. So that's why I've shied away from it. It's on the list of things to do, but it's not very high up.
Was that the whole thought process behind the standalone app? Absolutely.
Because with the app, then we have the ability to control how it communicates to the farm. We have the ability to do that multi-session TCP, which you can't do through others, or you can't do easily through other common protocols like HTTP or FTP. It gives us the ability to control the encryption levels. It gives us the ability to control how the encryption mechanisms work. It gives us the ability to update those when they need to be updated, when new ciphers come out. So that's why we have gone with the thick application route. But we do give people, at least we give people the ability to run the application on as many machines as they want. So we do have a lot of users that they might have it installed on their work machine, and they submit a job from there. Then they install it on their machine at home, and then they can look at stuff there. They can even redirect the output to their home machine if they need to for whatever reason. So we're trying to make the agent as available as possible, just for these reasons, for management reasons. But we get it. Mobile apps, it'd be cool. It's kind of one of those things where you go, well, how many people want it versus how much dev time is it going to take? And all that stuff. You have to kind of weigh all that. So it just, there hasn't been
Chad
enough
Ashley saying in the Chad Ashley saying in the chat, don't do anything that raises prices. So if that means prices going up, then all right.
No, I don't have any intention to raise prices. If anything, my long-term intention is to drop them.
Nice. That's what I like to hear. Have you gotten any blowback from any of the other render farm companies?
Any of the other services? No, we just take their customers. And really,
that's funny.
But yeah, we do have a lot of converts from other services, and sometimes they seem to come in waves. We'll get like a whole wave of people that came from, well, I shouldn't name names because we're all in this together, but we'll get a wave of users from one farm service, and then we'll get another wave from a different service. And sometimes there's a reason for it, like, oh, well, this farm used to support this and they just dropped it, or oh, they just totally changed their pricing model for this particular render engine or something.
Right.
So then we'll get those render farm refugees, but but that's okay. And we're not the end all be all either. Sometimes people say, oh, well, I sent the same job over to some other farm service, and it came out fine and it didn't come out fine on yours. Well, I'm sorry about that, but there's about, I don't know, several gazillion possible knobs, switches, sliders, settings of all the different software that we can support, and they probably have better support for that particular set of applications that you were using. And so my recommendation to them is go use them. I mean, we're just not ready for that yet, or we don't have special handling for that yet. Just go use the other guy.
Yeah. Cool.
So.
Man, it's a killer service. It really is. And the way you got everything set up, just the thought of all the machines turning on and off and on and off, that is super cool.
Yeah.
One day, once you finally tell me where you're located, I will maybe try to invite myself there.
I've actually thought about having a close personal friends of Pixel Plow party at some point, and inviting a bunch of guys up and blindfolding all of you, putting you in an unmarked van, or no, maybe that'd be too creepy. No, it would be fun. I'd love to be able to do that someday, but as of right now, our security and anonymity, if you will, is a little more important. So
now
it's going to happen. Right.
Does the so the security wise, I could see that as being like, okay, I'm thinking of it as from some of these big companies, such as like, Disney or Marvel or,
sure.
Universal or something.
Sure.
I would think that security would need to be in place initially for some of these to actually use the farm. Was that a thought process behind the extra security?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the agent, and it's part of our terms of service, actually. Some people don't always notice it, but in our terms of service, just by a user signing up, we are under a non-disclosure agreement to them by default. So like right out of the gate, there's legal, they're protected legally, and that we are not allowed to reveal who they are, what they're doing, that sort of thing. We're not allowed to distribute their data anywhere outside of our infrastructure. Only Pixel Plow employees are allowed to even look at any of the data, so on and so forth. So that, as kind of a legal basis or a policy basis for how our service works, was pretty important to me, because we had a lot of people early on, and I'm not quite sure why so many people early on were so concerned about this, but 5-6 years ago, people were like, well, what's the security like? What's the security like? What's the security like? These days, we never get any of those questions. Like, I can't even remember the last time we got one of those security-related questions.
Right.
But it early on, like, everyone was really concerned about that. And so when we built the agent, we're like, okay, we just need to use the highest level of encryption available bidirectionally, so that all the data to and from the agent gets encrypted before it even leaves the customer machine. And then that's how all of our, agent to farm communication needs to work. And so that's how we've developed the agent over the years, and it's just always been that way. So when we do get security questions, I'm like, yeah, it's, bidirectional AES encryption, 256-bit, blah, 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 blah. You roll off a bunch of marketing terms, and if that doesn't satisfy them, then usually they have a very specific, you're like, well, what cipher set are you using? Okay, let's take that conversation offline. But
yeah.
But yeah, the whole secure by default approach is kind of fundamental to IT infrastructures, and it's what I was used to building for the business customers, that I was building and managing networks for. So it's just kind of how the service is built by default. We just never really thought about doing anything other than having it be encrypted all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool.
All right, so let's go into a little segment we like to do called Brograph Recommends. I know that you were telling us before the show you listened to, or you were reading a new book, right?
Yes.
What was the name of it?
It's called The Pumpkin Plan. And it was actually
Pumpkin
recommended
plan.
to me. Yeah, one of our developers, actually, who's actually my brother, gave it to me. He's like, "Yeah, you got to read this." And it's kind of funny because I'm not quite sure why, but I seem to be the only entrepreneurial person in my extended family, for worse or for worse. But so I get these, I get these books and CDs and things sent to me by everyone in the extended family. They're like, "I heard this was really good. You ought to read this. You got to listen to this." So anyway, yeah, I'm about halfway through the book, and but yeah, it's a pretty neat book. What it does is it talks about, it compares building a business from kind of like a CEO perspective or an owner perspective, compares building a business with that of a prize-winning pumpkin farmer. So you see these guys, you go to county fairs and stuff, and you see these, pumpkins that are as big as a pickup truck bed, right? And you wonder, how do they grow these things? Well, there's actually a very specific set of steps that you perform in order to get that gigantic pumpkin. And when the author of the book saw what that process was, he's like, "Oh my gosh, this has like direct comparisons with how you should be building your business." For example, it's talking about starting with good seed. You have to have seed that's capable of producing giant pumpkins. That's that has come from giant pumpkins, right? Because giant pumpkins begat giant pumpkins.
Right.
You shouldn't expect to get a little tiny pumpkin seed and grow a giant pumpkin out of it. It's just not going to happen. So you got to start with good seed, and then how you plant it and how you care for it. And as the vine grows, you're actually cutting away the pumpkins that don't show promise of becoming a gigantic pumpkin. So that way all of the vine's energy, or all of the business's energy, can focus on the one pumpkin that's most valuable. And so on and so forth. There's a number of different parallels that the author draws, but it's a pretty neat book. If you're a business owner, it's pretty valid and valuable. I think it's also valid for the guys that are doing freelance work, because it directly talks about, like, what are the good customers versus the bad customers? How do you identify the good customers versus the bad customers? How much time should you be spending on good customers versus bad customers? So on and so forth. So that's cool. It's a pretty good book.
So some things that we do on Brograph Recommends is we go through like a list of things, and we ask your favorite of those things. So
sweet.
Number one on our list is going to be, what is your favorite movie?
That is a tough call. I am going to say, if I had to pick a favorite, my wife is always interested in favorites. There's always multiple things, but I try to focus on, if you say favorite, I'm only going to pick one.
Absolute.
Absolute favorite right now is probably Iron Man 1.
Okay.
All right.
Iron Man 1.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's, so I think you can probably tell who my Hollywood hero is. Gee,
is
I
it
have
Robert
no
Downey
idea. How did you? I actually kind of want to buy an Iron Man suit at some point. One of those cosplay deals. I think that'd be a ton of fun. Just go to children's hospitals and stuff, and have sound effects and lights and everything.
There you go.
Well, you're kind of an engineer. You could probably make one, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got to put that audio engineering degree to good use. I build in a mobile sound system that has a sub in it and everything. Probably shake the suit right off me, but that would be awesome.
Well, Tokyo Megaplex actually in the chat says, "Are you also a fan, therefore, of Elon Musk, because he's basically Iron Man, right?"
He kind of is. Of what his companies are doing, definitely. I'm not. I guess I wouldn't consider myself an Elon Musk fanboy, but I definitely like what he's doing with his companies. I think it's pretty awesome.
What do they call the
All
Elon
right.
Musk fanboys?
What?
The Muskets?
The Musketeers.
Oh, the
Musketeers.
Musketeers. That's
Yeah,
even better.
that's good.
There we go.
That's good.
Well,
All
it's
right,
better
well,
than
let's
the
move on to
Muskies.
music.
Music?
What is your favorite music when you're and I like to kind of do this on two levels sometimes, like what is your favorite music overall, and then what do you like to listen to when you're working, because a lot of times that's two different things.
Yeah, a lot of times it is. So, are you looking for genre or band, or both?
Sure, both.
Either or, yeah.
Either or. At present, my favorite genre is, and this actually requires a small amount of explanation. It is operatic metal with choir vocals, background vocals. So, and you have to have a female vocalist. So it's a metal band
Okay.
with a female lead vocal, with choir in the background, and a full orchestra.
All right. I'm going to
Okay.
need an example.
Okay.
It sounds like something from like The Fifth Element.
It is a tiny, tiny sub niche of metal, but
Okay.
as you can imagine. But there are like, I think 4 bands that are in it or something like that. So Nightwish is probably the biggest band in that particular genre. Yeah. So Nightwish is definitely up there on the band list. But right now, my favorite band is probably Delane. And they're also in that particular very obscure genre of metal.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to have to listen
And
to it.
TV show.
Oh boy. You know, I'm a real big Archer fan, and I'm kind of sad to see it leaving Netflix. You know, I just heard somebody told me that Archer was leaving. Maybe it was my wife. I'm a pretty big Archer fan. It's just, I don't know. It's both mind-numbing and amusing at the same time. It's almost relaxing. Yeah, so I love Archer. But if I had to pick something other than Archer, I would say that's tough.
Yeah.
Tough call. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one.
Well, we can just
All right.
go with Archer.
Yeah.
That works.
Favorite podcast? Do you listen to podcasts?
Not as much as I should. No, I unfortunately my job requirements are such that I don't have a lot of time to be able to spend on non-support or non-farm management kinds of things. I wish I had more time, and I, we're going to be hiring here pretty soon, so hopefully that'll free my time up a little bit. And then I'll actually be able to listen to podcasts.
We'll just say the Brograph podcast then for the time being.
That works.
That's always a
for me.
placeholder until you come up with another one.
Right. Now, what about your favorite plugin? You see a lot of them.
Yeah.
So
Do you? Oh, okay.
We
This
see
could be
all
different
the
for you.
plugins.
This could be one that like you never have to deal with any like tech stuff with. You're just like,
Yes.
this one works. It's the best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to key off of that and say, yeah, I have to say it's probably Grayscale Gorilla HDRI Link.
Okay.
Now, why is it that? Because we don't have to have that plugin installed.
Oh really? Oh yeah, that's right.
right.
That's right, because his the link automatically puts everything in there, right?
Yeah, and when you do the save project with assets thing, it changes all the pathing to non-library paths, so it makes it all relative at that point. So we don't even have to support it. We don't have to have it deployed. We don't have to. So I would say, yeah, because of the complete lack of tech support load, my favorite plugin is Grayscale Gorilla HDRI Link Final Answer.
Nice.
Good. Well, by that description, then I guess that means that our plugin would also work, because that's similar to how ours works.
Our
as
plugin
well.
would work
So,
too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It would.
Cool.
It would indeed.
Wearing.
Sorry, you dropped out there for a second.
Yeah, you
What
dropped
was
out, Dave.
Oh, headphones. Favorite headphones.
I am actually a musician, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise given that I have a degree in audio engineering, but I play a variety of instruments. I just picked up I started playing bass again, bass guitar, and I'm really excited about that. Enjoying it, having a lot of fun.
Got one right
Yeah,
there.
I see that. Yep.
Yeah.
So bassists unite. I picked up, but because I'm playing bass live, I actually picked up a pair of Westone Pro 3s. In-ear monitors. Okay, these things are these things are pretty amazing. So they're in-ear monitors. It's a stereo pair, super lightweight. They actually have 3 acoustic drivers per little module that goes into your ear. You got a bunch of different
3 drivers.
3 drivers, and they're passively crossed over. So it's just like having 3 different speakers in a cabinet, and passive crossovers between the drivers. But it's having 3 speakers in each ear, and they sound really nice. They're expensive, but and for in-ear monitoring, man, they're just awesome. I played with them for the first time a little over a week ago, and I was like, oh man, where have these been all my life?
Wow.
Other than that, it would be the standard plain old Sony 7506s.
All right.
Are those the ones I'm wearing?
I don't know. Probably.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know.
You might have a successor.
Yeah.
The res is too small, but
Yeah.
Favorite website and or Chrome extension?
I look at boring websites all day. I'm looking at all of our, temperature monitoring, our power monitoring stuff, and uptime monitoring websites. That's why I spend almost all of my time in. So as far as enjoyable websites that I go to,
I mean, it can be non-enjoyable.
it could be a miserable experience website, but I call it my favorite anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you have a Chrome extension or something.
AdBlocker Pro is a great Chrome extension.
There you go.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay.
There you go. That's pretty good. And then lastly, this is a hard one for a lot of people, but your favorite life hack?
That is a good question.
It could be something like something you do in the kitchen. It could be something as far as productivity.
I absolutely know what it is. Okay, now hyper efficient, freak of nature, right? I love installing motion sensing switches connected to bathroom fans. Okay, this is like a pet peeve of mine. All right. Bathroom fans should be on motion sensing switches. That way, anytime anyone walks into the bathroom, the fan turns on.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to touch any switch, because why would you want to touch anything in the bathroom?
Yeah.
That way, guests come over, they walk in, the lights turn on, the bathroom fan turns on, and they're like, wait, I didn't have to touch anything. What happened?
Yeah, but then they'll be like, how do I turn it off? How do I turn it off?
Just walk out. That's the beauty of it, though. Although, yes, it does throw some people for a bit of a spin.
Yeah,
like,
I put motion sensing.
How do I turn this off?
Yeah, I put motion sensing in my bathrooms, and that's the same question that I get, because it's so great, because you just go in and out and you don't worry about it. But then everybody at parties and stuff, they're like, I didn't know how to turn it off, so I just opened up the thing and turned it all the way. I'm like, yeah, you turned it off
my pocket
for
screwdriver and
right.
Yeah,
it's auto.
I love motion sensing light switches, because think about how much time you spend and how much wasted energy there is in just finding a light switch when you walk into a room. Even if it's just a split second, that's a split second of your life that you're never getting back.
Are you constantly thinking about this stuff? Like how to,
Yes.
how to spend as little amount of time as possible on things?
Yeah. So I have 2 other possible life professions that I could have gone into. One was being an attorney. People say I'm a really good attorney. Maybe that's why I read EULAs so much. I don't know. I'm probably the only person. And then the other is I would love to be a motion study expert.
Okay.
Motion study.
Okay.
So if you are into motion study work, you are into analyzing the processes by which people perform certain tasks and removing the parts that make that task take a longer period of time. And that's actually what our lead dev is also extremely good at, but from a software perspective. He always tells me when I ask him, how did we make that any faster? How did you do that? And his response is, I take out the slow parts.
Okay.
You see, as simple as that sounds, if you can do that in life, in any process, whether saving time, and thereby you have more time available to do things that are really important to you. And of course, all of these time savings, they're all cumulative. So those split seconds that I'm saving by not having to flip a light switch every time I go into a room, they're cumulative. I've already saved 10 minutes in my life. You know, that's 10 minutes I can do something else that I actually wanted.
Then are you a user of the text expander app?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, the text expander app. Have you used that before?
No, I haven't. That sounds like
you got to check out text expander. Oh man, this does little shortcuts for things you type all the time, and when it notices you typing something a lot, it says, hey, you could use an abbreviation for this. Right. So that you don't have to do that all the time. These little commands, and it even keeps track of how much time it has saved you over the course of your account.
That's brilliant. That's my kind of software right there. That's my
the only thing that I noticed about the light switch thing, though, is that whenever I get so used to walking in bathrooms and the light goes on, then I kind of like walk into bathrooms and then I have to turn around and go back to find the light switch. So I'm not sure if it's saving me time because then I expect everything to turn on.
You go into a public restroom and you're like, come on, why aren't the lights on? What's the problem here?
That's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just see, the problem, Dave, is that the rest of the world just hasn't caught up with us yet.
Right. Well, that's what Steve Jobs did. Is he went off on this tangent one time about the load time, the boot time of some of their computers back in the early days, because he's like, well, if you save 1 second of load time here times X amount of boots, you're saving millions of lives because it adds up. So.
And see, Ty, you're saving millions of C4D users' lives.
That's right.
By being efficient.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Saving some backsides.
Cool. All right. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show and taking the time to talk to us and giving us some insight on how everything works.
I know the people in the live chat really enjoyed it. Someone said at one point, it's a really good interview when the chat is like nothing is going on. People are actually listening.
Right.
You could hear a pin drop. Wait, I have a pin here. No. Well, that's great. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate the availability and being able to be on here and talk to users. I know on a company front, we're very anonymous. You're talking to the Borg sort of thing, but it's fun to be able to relate to people on a little bit more of a one-on-one basis.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Well, his name, Mr. Plow. That name again is Mr. Plow. Ty Christensen of Pixel Plow. Thanks for being on the show, man.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.
So, Matt, if you will keep rolling on yours, unless you stopped it already.
No, I haven't.
You keep rolling. All right. And then, Ty, if you can Dropbox me or retransfer me or something, your file.
Sure.
Whatever way you feel. Oh, we are still live, by the way.
We are still live.
Don't say anything that you...
Yeah. we're gonna get off the phone with you and record the
I have
rest of
this
the
really
episode.
weird rash. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny.
So, if you could just as soon as possible, just pack that file and send it to me so I can get it in there and get the show posted.
Sure.
And then for
You
the
broke
rest
up
of the
there.
episode, we're going to go ahead and record the rest of the episode. So then, by the time we're done, hopefully, I'm sure that'll upload pretty quick, especially if you have good bandwidth. So,
Yeah.
I don't even know who has good bandwidth over here. Which connection are you talking about?
the 56K modem.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't have one of those.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going
maybe,
to
maybe sometime after we make a public release of this V3 agent, it'd be cool to be on the show, even for just a little snippet. It wouldn't have to be the whole thing, but just kind of talk about what Corral technology is all about and how it's helping people out. I never got to that in the talk today, but there's lots of cool stuff there. So
cool. All right. Well, let me know if you have any issues with the file or anything. Otherwise, we'll be talking to you in a bit.
all right, sounds good, man. Talk to you guys later.
Take care.
Thanks,
Yep.
Ty.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Hello? What about now? Can
All
anyone?
right. There we go.
Sorry, everyone. Can people hear me now?
Yeah, people can hear you now.
Yay. Can they see me now?
Yes, they can see you now. We got the new
Yay.
call set up. All right.
I'm just over here singing to myself. Oh. I'm kind of cut off.
No, you're not.
Am I?
All right. Let's get set up for the rest of the
Mr.
show.
Plow. That's his name. That name again is Mr. Plow. So let's just do intro.
Yeah, we won't do
should've just
Beeple's
done
people.
Intro, outro. What'd you say?
I said we won't do Beeple's people. There's a couple. Let's see. Let me see if there's anything.
The biggest thing was the VR corner with the or like that's the only. I mean, there's Octane 4, of course, but we talked to Jules with that. So
What's the VR corner you wanted to
the
go
Vive thing, the drop in price.
over? Oh, we
the-
can talk about that later.
All right. It's just
All right.
breaking news. and also the Unreal Engine Paragon assets. $12 million in Paragon content released for free. No, my mother-in-law.
We'll just put those in the notes for the next one, and we'll. There are a couple things for like this week that I wanted to go over, but that's real quick, and then we can get out. So.
All right.
All right. I believe I am still rolling. Are you?
Still rolling, yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Call Mr. Plow. That's his name. That name again is Mr. Plow.
All righty. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph Brocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And Brograph is a supplement to our site, brograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other MoGraph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man.
Working for the man.
Speaking of which, I hope all you corporate people got your taxes sent in.
Dave did our taxes.
Yes. And you can email us, brograph@brograph.com. Send in your questions, your comments, your show topic ideas. Doesn't matter if it's something noob or if it's something advanced. We like to talk about everything on the show. Again, brograph@brograph.com. And this week we have a really exciting show for you.
It's the show of CEOs.
The CEO show.
The CEO show. Hey, that's a good title for the
title. CEO show.
The CEO show.
Because.
Oh, sorry. Because we've got. I didn't know you were throwing that to me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because we got Ty Christensen from Pixel Plow, as well as Jules Urbach from Otoy. Ty's here to talk to us about render engines and or not render engines, but render farms.
Yeah.
And what it's like building and growing a render farm. Really great discussion. And then Jules is here because so they emailed us last week, late in the week, and they're like, "Hey, Jules has some exciting stuff coming up. We'd love to talk to you about it." And we're like, "Okay." So they asked if it would work today to get it out on this latest podcast, and we're like, "Yeah, sure." So little did we know. 20 minutes before we recorded the episode, or before we recorded, they released Octane 4, the standalone, which is incredible. And so, like, I get we get a text message from David about Octane 4, and then I realize, oh, that's why the Slack has been blowing up this morning.
Right.
And so the standalone version has been released, and you guys will really enjoy that interview as well. So
I'm excited to get the show posted so I can go play with it. Speaking of which, David just sent us a video. He did a side-by-side comparison from 3 to 4 on load times.
Oh, he did?
Have you had a chance to look at that yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, I'll put that in the show notes. Hopefully, if he's still listening, he can tell us where to find that. If that's, I don't know if he's got it posted up somewhere, but
it's on YouTube. It's already got 114 views.
Yeah, I imagine. Jeez. That's like, okay, so what was the final number? I was trying to look in here. The scene he was using was the one that he did with space whales, I believe. So he's got like a pretty big scene in there because it's got VDBs and stuff like that. So he did a timer on it. And I'm trying to look and see what the final time was for Octane 3. I'm guessing this is probably 3.08, I think. So
it is 3.07.
3.07.
6A.
Close enough, right?
Yeah.
You figure the load time on that is probably going to be something similar to 3.0.
Wow. The fact that it's still loading and I'm 45 seconds into it is crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm at 1 minute and 13 seconds right now, so I'm waiting. I know it was somewhere around here. So again, lots of VDBs, lots of stuff going on. I don't know how many. I don't know if it says how many tries. Actually, 20 million tries, right? And that loaded in 1 minute and let's see. I'm waiting.
It was like 1 minute and 20 something, 29.
1 minute and 26 seconds is what he's at, and that's 20 million polys. Which that's a really
that is
big
a ridiculous amount of polys.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he could actually his cars actually were handling that scene at all, because mine would probably just blown up.
Holy cow!
Yeah, I think it's something like 6 seconds on Octane 4.
6 seconds on Octane 4.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So we're gonna put that in the show notes. And so you can check that out yourself.
Live or like watching us watch our phones.
Yeah.
Dude, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty nuts. So, all right. So we're going to go to those interviews. Things from the week. Number one is this is just something random I wanted to throw out there. I've been Breaking Bad. Watching, have not seen or rewatching Breaking Bad. Notice the opening titles, because there's some things in it that drive me nuts. Number one is it's like continuous rasterization was not turned on some of the chemical symbols. So they have they're like super blurry, and that always bugs me. And then some of the masking with some of the smoke and stuff that goes across it is pretty funny.
Lost. The show Lost at the beginning with the thing just coming towards you.
It's
always
so
hated that
ugly.
because there was like some sort of pixelation or something, or like the edges didn't match up. I can't even remember what it is, but it was terrible.
The font, everything looked terrible about that. It was really bad.
Lost was a stupid show anyway. I hated it. Let me down.
Yeah.
You let me down, Lost.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And what else do we got here? We're prepping for NAB. I saw that picture. Somebody posted a picture. I think it was it Rick Bogus posted a picture of me and Chris Schmidt playing the creepy clown dance game.
Yeah.
And there's Creepy Baby Baseball. Remember to sign up.
Creepy Baby Baseball is back.
Oh man. Oh, it wasn't working.
No, it wasn't working last year.
Of Rick Bogus, he actually said, "This is some heavy memento style recording techniques today. I know everything's out of order." So
yeah.
So we're getting ready for that. So make sure you come and hang out with us at the pinball party at NAB. Also, we wanted to mention that we are selling soon. We'll be selling all of the French Monkeys product on our site as well. So we're excited about doing that.
So anything the French Monkey sells, we will be selling on our site as well. And so just pay attention around NAB time, maybe.
Yeah.
Just a little heads up there. So
also, we wanted to mention that Redshift Thursday is going to be on Wednesday this week. So it'll be
what a terrible Tuesday.
Redshift Thursday, Wednesday. And got a message from Liam, so we're moving some things around. And I think that covers it for what we had this week. So let's go ahead and go to the Jules interview, and then we'll come back and move to the next CEO.
That was an awesome interview. It was a great interview. Sorry people on the live stream don't get to see it.
Yeah, actually, there's already a clip out on the live, out on our YouTube channel.
I saw that you put that together. Good job.
That's how I roll. That's how I roll. So now that that's done, I guess we don't have anything else to talk about in between. So let's go to the next interview.
All right.
See, people on the live stream watching us do this all out of order today are really confused. But this is actually what happens when we record a show. We actually record like all the different pieces out of order, and you never even know that we did it sometimes. So
see, this is just how. Yeah, I mean, this is how the business works.
Right.
So you guys
it's
know.
Called the business.
The big show.
Us people in Hollywood, you know.
Us people in Euless, Texas.
I.e. our parents' basements. Right.
Sage said this is how the sausage gets made.
Right, exactly. This is how we make the donuts.
Right.
So we're going to get out of here. Don't forget to send in your email questions, brograph@brograph.com. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review, help get our ratings up with that. You can also subscribe to our audio on the podcast catcher, on your podcast catcher of choice, and you can sign up for our newsletter. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the no Brograph, no Mograph tee, with the Paul Babb, Feel the Babb 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. There's also the limited edition Gate and D Simone shirt, which is very limited.
Very limited. For
a limited time. Make sure you get your hands on that. And our new Render Things shirts and hoodies.
Yes.
So there's lots of shirts.
Yes. We might have a couple of Render Things shirts at NAB. Come find us.
True. Oh, those should be coming in today, by the way. I think today or tomorrow. So
we are so ready for NAB. We got buttons, we got stickers, we got shirts.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get out of here, and we're gonna save some of the other stuff for next week because I think we had a plenty long show today.
Yeah, I think it's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So
short show, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, you can contact us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube and Brograph.com. So
yay!
That wraps it up. So until next week, I'm Dave,
and I'm Matt.
Have a good one.
Later, bros. Brograph.com, an online resource for with this person and 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 this person.
Real nice banana.
And this person and this person. We don't care how to get here, just get here.
Derp.
Man, it gets me hard.
I mean pumped.
Pumped, right?
Pumped. Whoops.
It's all right.
Whoops.
Whatever.
All right, live peeps.
All right, peeps.
Thanks for watching. We're going to go edit this crazy, wacky, out of order episode.
Yeah, well, Dave is. I'm going to go to Taekwondo.
All right.
Thanks,
so you have fun with that. I'm going to shut this thing down. So thanks for watching live, everybody, and we'll see you later. Now the shutdown process begins. No, see, now we're in the waiting game music. We're still live, by the way, just let you know, until I get it all shut down. No obscenities yet.